All right, we're live on October 24th. This is the Amateur Analyst Sports Podcast. Tonight we have our long-awaited NBA preview. It's only going to be a three-man panel tonight. We got a new face, my friend Kevin Davis, that I went to law school with. I'll let Kevin introduce himself in a second, and as usual, Perry Doobie. Kevin, say hello.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Eric. This is Kevin Davis. As he mentioned, law school grad with him. Played college basketball at Presbyterian College and also at Lenore Ryan University. Originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, so I'm just here to have a good time talk some NBA.
Doobie.
Go Hawks.
Nice and simple. I like it. And I am your Go Lakers guy for the night. I got the Lamar Odom 7 jersey on right now. Kevin's got a throwback on. I'll let him talk about it at some point because it's fantastic. Doobie's just rocking the hat and T-shirt for the Hawks. Tonight, we're going to get a little college football at the end of this probably, but it's going to be pretty much just NBA most of the night. We're going to go over a lot of predictions, who's making the playoffs, who's winning the awards. We'll each talk about our own teams a little bit, and any of our live viewers, if you have a team you want us to discuss or any specific questions, as we have the live comment section on the YouTube page, so feel free to comment in, ask any questions. I'll make sure we get them answered. Let's just get right into it with predictions. Doobie, I'm going to have you start us off with your Eastern Conference playoff predictions.
All right. So what I've gotten, number one seed, I think it's pretty simple. I'm going to go with the Cavs. I don't think there's any reason why the Cavs should not be in that position to be the number one team. They bring pretty much everyone back. I think Mozgov being gone could be a slight issue, but I don't think it's going to be enough to affect them from not being the one seed. Two, I've got the Pacers. I think they made some really good moves in the offseason. Paul George is finally going to be healthy again. You add in Teague. I really like Miles Turner to take another step out there. So I like the Pacers to have a really good season and come in as the 2 seed there. 3, I've got the Celtics. I don't like the Celtics this year. I think they're overrated as far as the playoffs go. However, I do think they have enough to get that 3 seed in the East. With Horford and Thomas and everybody else that they've got over there. I love Jay Crowder. I think that they deserve to get that 3 seed, and they will do that. But I'll talk about their playoff performance in a second. 4, I've got the Raptors. I think they take a step back this season, but still end up in the 4 seed. Not much has changed there, except they lost a couple pieces who I think were pretty important, like Biyombo and a couple other guys, but they brought back DeRozan, so we'll keep them there. 5, I've got the Hawks. This is a homer statement, but I think that Dwight Howard plays much better than people expect him to. I think that if Mike Budenholzer is smart, he will make Dwight Howard the feature of that team, both on offense and defense. They will get him the ball in every situation that they can, and they will make this his team. If they do that, and Millsap can be a compliment, then I think that they can do well. 6, I've got the Bulls. I just think they take a lot of time to get together, but I think they're a great team, and I think they're going to cause trouble in the playoffs. 7, I'm going with the Magic. I think that the Magic, with Serge Ibaka and a couple other additions that they made, do make a push here, make the playoffs finally. And then 8, I've got the Miami Heat. I don't think they're a great team, but I do think that Whiteside's enough to get them in the playoffs.
All right, Kevin, how much different is yours going to be for us?
I don't know that it's going to be too different by way of teams outside of the Magic. That was a little bit of a shocker for me to hear anybody thinking anything of that organization. But, there is a lot of young talent still there after the trade. You got Serge there now, but going into mine, and again,
Kevin, I gotta pause you real quick because this is fantastic. Because the 2 guys that are on here usually as well are big Magic fans, and both of them are not getting on here to do their big Homer Magic speech. So the fact that the first word about the Magic from you is that they're an awful organization is kind of fantastic to me. and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of texts from those guys about this. But
That was
I'll
awesome.
go ahead and let you continue
That could
on.
not have been any better.
Yeah, that was completely unscripted. Again, I've had very little knowledge of anyone who is a self-proclaimed Magic fan. But again, to digress into my predictions, those are well thought out, and I agree with most of those teams. I do like Cavs as a 1 seed. I think it's hard to argue with what they have returning. There's obviously been some great progress in the summer with Jordan McRae. I've read a couple articles on how well he's progressing and how LeBron has really embraced him and made him a part of the fold. And so I look for a big push from him and as a member of their bench, a key member of their bench. Kay Felder, again, great young rookie. We haven't seen him in gameplay yet, but everything I'm hearing from the summer, and obviously any guy who can lead the NCAA in points and assists in the same season is just a flat-out basketball player. There's very few guys who can do that, and I think that will be able to translate. But then moving to the second, I think the second seed, I like the Celtics. There's obviously there's Terry Rozier. There's some there's Isaiah Thomas. There's a lot of guards who are I would consider a little unproven. I don't know if Avery Brad. I need to check on how he's been progressing from the knee injury. But I like a lot of their younger guards. I think they might even still have the rights to James Young. I'm not 100% sure about that, the former Kentucky wing. But I like a lot of those young guards to be hungry and try to be aggressive on both sides of the ball. I also obviously like the coach. I mean, there's very little that Brad Stevens can't do by way of adjustments in game. And so I look for them to make a huge push. At 3, I like the Raptors. They're returning. I don't know if the complacency bug will kick in with them and if they'll just feel entitled. Last year they got off to a huge start. I think they might have – I don't even want to mischaracterize how well they started, but I was one of the few people that I remember calling fraud on them last year at the beginning of the year, and I was proven wrong by the way they pushed the Cavs in that Eastern Conference. So I like them at 3. I like the Pacers at 4 for no other reason than that they're the Pacers, and you just expect some stability with a team led by Paul George. Miles Turner obviously was a great young big last year, saw a lot of good things from him. They still have their basic core set up. I think Stuckey's still there. Monte is still there. And so they got a lot of pieces that are still there. I think they're poised to kind of hold par, but also be in the top half of the conference with a healthy Paul George for full 82 games. At 5, again, this may be this may be a bit of a stretch, but I think the Wizards, after everything that John Wall and Bradley Beal discussed this summer, as far as I think John Wall was quoted as saying we don't get along on the court. I think they've probably worked a lot behind the scenes on that because I don't think that's what John Wall intended. He's a leader. He's been a leader since Kentucky. The guy's proven that time and time again. And he seems like and feels like one of those genuine guys that really wants to win. You know, you get players that say it year in, year out, where I want to win. I'm focused on team. You know, he's been paid. I know he's made gripes occasionally about how much the market has gone up and how much guys are getting paid. But I think he's been paid and knows that another payday is soon to come. And I think right now he's just focused on winning and getting that done for his legacy. So I like John Wall to lead his group there. At 6, I like the Knicks. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they try to gel how they gel at the beginning of the year. I think they're going to have some ebbs and flows. I think they could probably be as high as possibly a 4 seed. But I just don't know that they're going to all be able to really commit to one another. You know, you've got guys who've been the guy in other places, Melo, Derrick Rose, Brandon Jennings. They've got good glue pieces like a Courtney Lee. And then obviously Porzingis, hopefully he'll continue to take steps and this team can be good. But it's just too much going on as far as Phil trying to bring the triangle in, but then Jeff Hornacek kind of making it known that he's going to abandon that. So that's kind of what I think about that. And then at 7, I like the Bucks. I just genuinely like what they're doing. They're building a long team. They're going to be athletic. Defensively, they're going to be one of the better teams in the league again. They just moved Michael Carter-Williams. Who did they get back in a trade for him?
They
was it
got
Snell?
the kid at Snell, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Snell,
Okay. So I don't know what that trade really does, what it really means, but I do like them to at least get in the playoffs. It is the Eastern Conference after all. And then at 8, I got to go with a little bit of a homer pick here. I got to go with my Hornets. It just feels right that we're going to be, too good to miss the playoffs and tank and get a lottery pick, but also, not bad enough where we can't sneak in the 8th seed. And so that's what I think with my Eastern Conference predictions.
All right. I don't have a whole lot different. I do have one team. I might have missed it when someone said it, but I think Detroit's going to have a much better year this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. I have them jumping up to a 6 or 7 seed. I was really tough between Detroit, Charlotte, and Washington in my 6, 7, 8. I think a lot of this conference is going to be tied up to like similar out of the West was a few years ago when you had like 2 or 3 games pretty much deciding the 2 through 7 seeds. So I think it's going to be, a lot of these numbers in the middle can change. I had Boston. I had the same 4 as Kevin up top with Cleveland, Boston, Toronto, and the Pacers. Cleveland, nothing more needs to be said. It's still LeBron, Kyrie. They're still going to be one of the best teams in the league. They're still going to be the best team in the East. I do think they slow it down a little bit and try to rest guys in the regular season. So I don't think we see them like dominating and having the conference won by like 10 games or anything like that. I love Brad Stevens in Boston. I think he's got that team rolling. They can only get better. They didn't lose enough pieces to hurt him, and they picked up a good player like Horford. I think they have a great season, easily take the 2 seed. Other than that, everything's mostly been said on the East. I'll tell you what on the Knicks, Kevin. I can't imagine that at least 1 or 2 knees doesn't get blown out on that team. I just don't see any way that they stay healthy with that squad. I mean, if they stay fully healthy, that's a great team, a lot of talent. But it's just hard for me to see that happening. I could see them having a great season. I could see them not even sniffing the playoffs. It's going to be something interesting to keep an eye on. Kevin, do you have your TV on?
Yeah, is it picking up?
Yeah, just hit mute. You're good on that.
My bad.
I was picking something up there. No worries. So we're going to move on from that. I did not get an Orlando Magic preview text from Kyle or Sirio, so we're not going to get that read out. If they get it to us later in the day, maybe we'll discuss getting them in. But
did neither of you pick the Hawks to make the playoffs?
I had them at the 5.
I think that was actually my oversight, but I do not believe that Dwight Howard is a winner in any way, shape, or form, and we can get into that later as well. But
That's rough.
I don't think Dwight's going to do much, but I just think Coach Bud learned from one of the best, and he puts in a system and a style that just wins games in the regular season consistently. And it's going to be hard to stop them from consistently winning basketball games. Schroeder's going to have to really, really grow up this year, that's for sure. He's got a lot of talent, but he's a bad decision maker.
And that's huge. I think that can't be overstated, that if you're going to turn the reins over to a kid who has been historically moody and decision-making fluctuates with his mood, and quite frankly, his jump shot fluctuates with the way he's playing. That's a lot to ask of a young kid to try to lead a team. Dwight has been, for all intents and purposes, he's been saying the right things, doing the right things, but he's still Dwight Howard. And what I mean by that is he's still an enigma on the block offensively, and his effort fluctuates as well. But maybe being at home will change that. But this team could very well be a 5 seed, or they can be 5 games back. That's kind of what I think.
I mean, I see the points there, and I see the points that you're making. I think everyone's ignoring that Paul Millsap has proved himself to be one of the top 30 players in the NBA, and that is a good front court if Dwight can even be 50% of the player that he was, 3 or 4 years ago. The other point I wanted to bring up is I love what you said about Kay Felder. I was so mad when the Hawks picked Kay Felder and then traded him to the Cavs. That made me so furious. I can't describe it because I was so pumped when they picked him, and then I saw that trade come up on the screen. I think he's going to be a great player out there. Maybe not this year immediately. I think he might come in and make some big shots, but for the future especially, I think that was a great trade by them.
What the Cavs give up for that?
Like nothing. Like it was like a conditional pick or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't even remember that he was originally drafted by Atlanta. I thought that
he was
Cleveland had drafted him, but
yeah. I was pretty upset about that one, but we'll agree to disagree on the Hawks altogether.
Hey, don't worry, we'll all get back together halfway through the season and do this again, and all yell about how awful all of our decisions and predictions were. All right, we're going to move right along into the Western Conference. I will be shocked if the top two aren't all the same, but you never know. Maybe we got some surprises. What do you got, Doobie?
I'm going to surprise you. Number one, I've got the Warriors. That's not where I'm surprising you. While I don't think that they even come close to eclipsing last year's record or even go over 68, or that's what it was originally put at Vegas, they're over under. I believe it's dropped to 64 now. I still don't think they get that. I still think that they have the best record in the West through talent alone. I don't like this team as much as I liked last year's team for the Warriors. I don't like it as much as I liked last year's team for the Thunder. I'll discuss that, I guess, in a little bit here. But they are still my number one seed in the regular season. Number two, I'm going to go really shocking here. I'm going to go with the Grizzlies. I think that they actually come out and surprise a lot of people. They've still got that foundation, that base. They added some players. And I think that they can actually be a very solid team that wins games throughout the season. I think they're well coached. And I think that Connolly is the type of guy who will appreciate the contract he got and make it worthwhile for the team. Three, I've got the Trailblazers. I think they take another step forward by the simple fact that they're getting another year older. This is a young team with an incredible amount of talent. They re-signed pretty much everybody. They kept those pieces that we all thought would go to New Jersey or somewhere else when they're willing to overpay them, like Crabbe. And I really think that they're going to be a great team this year, and I think that they're going to take that next step forward to be in the top three. Four, I've got the Spurs. This is simply by the virtue of the fact that I don't think Popovich will make any effort towards getting higher than the 4 seed. I love this team. I love the Spurs team more than any other team in the NBA this year. But I just don't think that Popovich is going to care about getting a record. He's going to care about making that team work together and incorporating Paul Gasol, because that guy has to be a vital part of that offense if they're going to succeed. 5, I've got the Thunder. I think that they have a really good season without Durant. I think that Westbrook has an unbelievable season, and I think that they get that 5 seed in the competitive West. 6, I've got the Clippers. I've never been big on the Clippers. I'm not going to change that now. I think they continue to take this slight step back that they seem to year after year. Not a major step back, but just a little bit. Chemistry issues. I'm convinced they should have traded Blake Griffin when they had the chance. And I just don't see this continuing without it blowing up in their faces one of these years. 7, this is probably the most shocking thing I'm going to say this entire podcast, maybe the most shocking thing I've said ever on this podcast. I've got the Phoenix Suns at the 7th seed. I have no logic behind that other than the fact that I think they did a great job in their draft, and I think that they have some really good pieces out there. I think they have too many point guards still, but I think that they have the talent and they've got a young core. I think that for some reason in my head they're going to take a step forward and get the 7th seed. And then 8, I've got the Mavericks. I think Harrison Barnes is a standalone player enough to maybe not merit that contract, but to merit being where he is, and I think he does make a difference. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they got Bogut as well.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so I think they're a good team. I just think the West is incredibly competitive this year, but I like the Mavericks to squeak in there with the 8th seed.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Kevin.
I would have to say I don't agree with the Grizz, but other than that, mine is going to be pretty similar. I think the Warriors are um, clearly, with the amount of scrutiny, the amount of talent, they're going to be under pressure to play their best every game. Now, obviously, guys will take rest. I would agree that 70 is probably not going to happen. I think 64 is more reasonable. I mean, it seems like the Spurs are able to squeak out 60 games a year with Pop, seemingly trying not to win games, but they seem to win 60 every year. So I think the team with the Warriors, when you have the unselfishness that they do have, and then they have just a culture and I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but it seems that there really is a culture of togetherness that will prevent them. I don't think they'll lose 3 straight all year. So I think that team is clearly the front runner. At the second slot, I like the Spurs. I think this narrative coming out about Aldridge being upset, I don't buy it. I do know that he's definitely a alpha male, but I don't buy that he's frustrated with being second fiddle. I think he wants to win. He knows that he can continue to score 20 and 10 or 20 and 15 or whatever he wants to do and lose, or he can, sacrifice some numbers, sacrifice some late game touches and be on a contender. So I think they'll get that straightened out. I think they will definitely be the Spurs we always have seen, especially now we've got Powell in the fold. You'd be looking at a lot of high-low basketball, great interior passing, and probably 60 wins. At the 3 slot, I like the Clippers. I know that Perry just mentioned he was down on them. I think that they have the talent. They have a closing window for sure. And I don't expect this group to be a championship contender. So I have them at third just because I think that the way Chris Paul leads, he won't let anybody take nights off, especially as he gets older and knows that this thing is winding down for him. So I don't think he's going to let anybody take nights off. They're going to beat the teams they're supposed to beat. They'll even probably get up for the big games, and that'll produce a third seed. But I just don't think they're for real championship contenders. But third seed nonetheless. At 4, I like the Grizzly pick. I think that Mike Conley is going to be really with he's always played with a chip on his shoulder, it seems. And I think that chip's only going to grow when people are second guessing the contract that he received. Another thing they're doing is they're moving bench. I think that's it. They do have a rookie coach, which normally I would never pick a rookie coach to take a group to a 4th spot. But when you got the culture that they've already had, defense, gritty, taking on the personality of that city, I think that coach is just going to fit right in and not try to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So I think that and if Marc Gasol can prove to be healthy, when big guys have foot problems, you're always worried. So we'll see what happens there. At 5, I agree with the Thunder. I had the Thunder there as well for obvious reasons. You've still got Steven Adams there. You've still got one of the best athletes to ever play any sport. I would argue Russell Westbrook, and you've got shooters. You've got Anthony Morrow still there. I believe Kyle Singler is still there, and I don't know how much he's going to be in the rotation, but I think that I think that this has been a rejuvenation for everybody, moving KD on and kind of getting a second shot at redefining who they are as a team and as an organization. So I look for them to be there at that spot. And then I do like the Suns to make the playoffs. I even don't have them as high as 6. Now that's just because I like Eric Bledsoe. I don't think he'll stay healthy enough. But I really like Bledsoe. I love Devin Booker. Can't say enough about that kid. So I think that'll be enough to score. Now, defensively, I just don't think they have – I think Tyson Chandler's still there, if I'm not mistaken, and he's the only one that really makes a commitment to defense. But when you're talking about, the young scorer like Bledsoe, young shooter, scorer, everything, and Devin Booker, I think that's enough to be my shock pick. That'd be my one shock pick at 6. At 7, I like the Rockets. They don't have Dwight Howard anymore. I think they're going to miss him a little bit more than they realize at this point. James Harden, I think, is experimenting at playing the 1 solely. And he's a good enough playmaker to do that. So I don't know how much it'll hurt them, but I certainly don't think. But Patrick Beverly missing games to start the year, I certainly don't think that they just are going to have the defense. Excuse me, they're going to have the defensive identity that they need to really win any meaningful games in the regular season to kind of position themselves better in the playoffs. Now, they do feel like a team that nobody wants to see come playoff time, so it'll be interesting to see that 2-7 matchup in the playoffs. And then at 8, I do think the Mavericks, Dirk, is still playing. He's still trucking. I think the Chandler Parsons is going to be much improved this year. I think he'll be healthy finally. Harrison Barnes has a lot to prove, and we'll see, what he's able to do. Wesley Matthews, I think, is a very good wing, two-way player. And then you got Bogut, who's there, and he knows how to play and can really pass for a big guy. I think that's really going to help the fluidity of their offense. Darren Williams hopefully will make a resurgence. Used to be one of my favorite players. In 2007, I would have argued you up and down that he was as good or better than Chris Paul, and he's fallen from grace quite a bit. And so we'll see how that shakes out for them. So that's my preview.
All right, before I get into mine, just real quick, Kevin, I think your sound cut out real quick. You were talking about Zebo getting moved to the bench for Memphis, right? Randolph?
Yes.
Yeah, something got cut out, and I just heard the word bench, and I assumed you were talking about Randolph, but just for the viewers, that was what was going on there.
All
right.
The only other thing I'll say is Parsons is now on the Grizzlies as well.
Yep. So, okay, so he got moved. Okay.
Yeah, he got a huge contract with the Grizzlies, so that's another reason why I like them.
Okay. Duly noted.
So top of mind is Golden State and San Antonio. I think Golden State was the perfect pick for Kevin Durant. I've never seen him as a guy when I watch him play. He doesn't want to be that LeBron James type, take over a game all the time. And sometimes you'll see the emotion from him, but you really just feel like he just wants to go out there and play ball with his buddies more, which is exactly what Golden State is. And I think they're just going to fly through the regular season. There's just too much talent for them to lose a whole lot of games. They have enough on the defense. They have beyond enough scoring. You got so many guys that can go off at any given moment that you can get two guys that have a complete crap night and still put up 120 points for that team. San Antonio, I mean, I like what you said, Kevin, about Gasol. You get rid of the big fundamental and you bring in a guy who by no means is on the level of Tim Duncan, but has some of the best footwork I've ever seen for a guy his size. Very fundamental player, great passer of the ball. I think it's a great guy to bring in to that system. Kawhi Leonard, I'm higher on him than I am anyone in this league right now. I think LeBron is going to pass the torch to him very soon. He is one hell of a basketball player on the defensive end.
Whoa. That was lofty there, but I'll let you continue.
I mean, you got a guy that last year, with everything that happened, was the defensive player of the year and second in MVP vote.
I completely agree with you, Palmer, actually. I actually thought it was absolutely absurd that they did a poll of the NBA GMs, and 37%, they asked them if they had to build their team around one player. 37% said Karl Anthony Towns. I would have expected that to be 90% Kawhi Leonard, given age and everything. I can't believe that figure is that far skewed towards Karl Anthony Towns, but I completely agree with you, Palmer.
I mean, heck, I love Karl Anthony Towns, and I still think that's way too high. I got Kawhi really high. He's phenomenal. I think Aldridge is going to be fine taking a second seat to him because he's going to have to. I mean, Kawhi's just a better player, and Aldridge is going to see that. But moving down, I got Portland at the 3. I have loved Damian Lillard since he entered the league. I keep expecting him to step up into the top few point guards in the league. He's still a top 5 point guard in the league to me. I expect him to have a big year, though. I want to see him go off. I don't think – Doobie, you said something about the West being very competitive this year. I agree, but I don't think top to bottom the West is what it used to be. I think there's a lot of good teams, but not a lot of really good teams going on. So I think you're going to see a pretty good logjam after Golden State and San Antonio. So Portland at the 3.
Let me I'll rephrase because I completely agree with you. I think that when I'm saying that it's competitive, I meant within those top 8 to 9 seeds. I think this is a much weaker year towards the bottom than the West has had in a long time.
Yeah. I was so torn on where to put the Clippers because I don't see them missing the playoff, but I'm with Doobie. I said it when we did our preview last year. I can't see them going a few more seasons without some kind of implosion on this roster. The personalities and the emotions that from DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, and Chris Paul have never meshed well. It's been so close to going off a few times and just always seems to hold together. So maybe they keep holding it together, but I just keep waiting for that implosion on that squad. And as soon as that happens, it's going to be a complete rebuild for them, which is difficult for a franchise like the Clippers. But I have them at 4. I have Memphis at the 5. That Parsons addition was very big for me. Gasol is probably the best all-around center in the league if he plays up to his ability. I know the owner and the coaches have been talking about his mental game and whether he's really fully bought in. So we'll see how that plays out this year. But he's got all the talent of any center I've seen for a few years now. At the where am I at 6? At the 6, I have Oklahoma City. Y'all said most of it on them. You know, they got the playmakers. They got Russell Westbrook. He's going to be trying to go nuts this year. I think his stats are going to be insane. He'll be up there in the MVP discussion. I don't think he wins it, but he'll be up there. 7, I have Houston. Harden's just going to play Harden ball pretty much all year long. They're not going to play defense at all. Every single game they play is going to be 130 to 125. I think they win enough of those late with Harden hitting absurd shots that he has no business hitting. At 8, I got the Utah Jazz. This is a really interesting team. Let me pull this up. I got something ready for this. Gobert, Exum, Hayward. I like the youth on the team. Joe Johnson scares me because I think he just tanks teams into the ground when he's on them. But he's there. We'll see how that goes. George Hill, if he can keep it up. Boris Diaw. I like this squad a lot in what I think is a weak middle of the road West area, and I think they might end up pulling it out. We haven't seen them do much in a while, but I think they might be able to pull it ahead. On the Mavericks pick y'all had, I think Barnes is going to just have a lot of trouble under the pressure of that contract. I don't think he was worth that money. I think he got it, and I worry about how he's going to handle that mentally. I think he's a very capable player, but we'll see how he can do moving to a new team and a new system. See how he does in that. I'm not going to do what I did last year and make the dumb prediction, even though I knew it was wrong that the Lakers are going to make the playoff, because it's not going to happen, and it makes me sad. So any more? Go ahead, Kev.
I was going to say, I think I might have had a major oversight and thought I had mentioned the Trailblazers. I don't believe I did, which is just a complete oversight. I think they're no less than a 4 seed. I think I had slipped my Grizzlies in there, but needed the Trailblazers there and just bumping everybody down one, really, which would result in, I think, the Mavericks not making the playoffs in my eyes. And again, I recognize the Suns jump is a tremendous jump that I think we both have very little factual basis for, other than we just want to see that type of a thing happen in the NBA. But
yeah, I can't believe that someone else other than me said that. When I put that down on my list, I was like, whoa, everyone's going to laugh at me. I'm glad that someone else has the same illogical beliefs that I do.
And it just goes back to even when they tried the 3-point guard thing out with Isaiah, Eric, and Brandon. You know, I kind of wanted that to work, just some kind of unique, crazy lineup. But you know, I just love Eric Bledsoe. So sorry, go ahead.
We'll get into these a bit more later, but their Vegas has their win total at 26.5 right now. So
yeah.
Vegas does not agree with y'all on that one very much.
And there's no reason to.
All right, so we're going to move along, unless there's any more playoff discussion, into the award predictions. Obviously, it's before the season. These are just fun, and we can talk about them a little bit. They mean less than our playoff predictions. So, Doobie, who you got winning? Y'all want to do award by award, or just everyone run through their list?
Might as well just run through it, the whole list, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what you got, Doobie?
All right, MVP, I've got Russell Westbrook. I love the way he's handled this whole thing. I love that this is going to be his team. I think the Thunder are still a good team. I love Sabonis. I really like that trade that they made to get Oladipo and Sabonis. I definitely think that Russell Westbrook kind of runs away with this award just because what he's done with Kevin Durant on the roster, I can't imagine what he's going to do without him. Number 2, though, I said it's not going to be that close, but my number 2 is Damian Lillard. I love Lillard, like you said, Palmer.
I like it.
if Kawhi Leonard doesn't exist, the guy that I'm building my team around is Damian Lillard, not Kyrie Irving or any other point guard or Steph Curry. If I had to take one point guard in the league other than maybe Russell Westbrook, and probably not even Russell Westbrook, I'm taking Damian Lillard. He slashes to the basket well. He's a good teammate. He's a multi-talented guy, and in a big market, I think that he could be a superstar, but only because he plays in Portland and no one knows about his rapping and all the other stuff that he does because he's in Portland. We don't really recognize it. I think this is the year when he kind of elevates to superstardom. Defensive player of the year, I've got Andre Drummond. I don't have the Pistons in the playoffs, but I think he takes another step forward. He was a raw player coming in, and he still made the impact that he has. I think as we continue to see him develop, he's just going to become the best defensive player in the league, even more so than Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, he's not as well-rounded as Leonard, but I think that this guy is just a monster down low. Rookie of the year, I've got Maurice Chris out of Washington in Phoenix. Obviously, I'm big on Phoenix this year. But I like Chris's whole skill set. I think that he's going to put up big numbers out there, and he's on a team that will give him the chance to have that impact. Coach of the year, I've got Earl Watson. If someone can get the Suns to the playoffs, they're going to win Coach of the Year. Obviously, you've got a couple other options there with the predictions that I had, but I fully believe that if the Suns make the playoffs like I think they're gonna, so that's what I predicted, I have to choose Earl Watson to be the Coach of the Year. Sixth Man of the Year, I'm going to go a little bit off the book because this is an older guy, but I'm going to go with Al Jefferson in Indiana. Miles Turner is going to be starting there, and I think he makes a big impact, but I think that Al Jefferson is he's been a steady player, under-recognized, underappreciated for a long time in this league. He has been over the past 5 to 10 years one of the better centers in the league. And I know he had a rough season last year kind of compared to his standards, but I like him to rebound in a six-man role out there. And then my most improved player is Chandler Parsons. In that Grizzly organization, they only make players better. You saw a guy like Zach Randolph come there from being a guy that no one could control to being a borderline superstar. You'll see that him working with those teams, with those guys on that team, you've got guys like Tony Allen, you've got guys like Mike Conley. I'm not saying that Parsons is a head case by any means, but I think that sometimes when he was in Houston and especially in Dallas, he struggled with how confident he should be and with whether he should be the star or not. I think that now he knows he's going to be a piece of this team, and that will make a huge difference for that squad. So those are my predictions.
Okay.
All right, Kevin.
Yeah, I like those. My MVP, I think it's going to come from a team that's not necessarily even in any of our discussions right now, but I think, and this is if he can stay healthy, I think he's – did my sound go out there?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I think Anthony Davis has a lot to prove, a lot to give the game still. And so, I think with Alvin Gentry and him, Alvin Gentry's an offensive guru. Anthony Davis really has just struggled to stay healthy. I think he's even been banged up throughout this preseason. But what we saw from him in that first round against the Warriors, not last year, but I believe it was 2 years ago now, what we saw from him then, that's still in there somewhere. And I think that guy will take a huge step forward. He's not being talked about. And I think that'll put a chip on his shoulder if he's any part of the player that I remember him being from 2 years ago. And having health, a good coach, another year of maturity, I think it'll only mean that he takes a step that everybody anticipated him taking. I think last year he was the trendy pick for MVP, and I think this year he's going to feel a little forgotten about, left out, and that'll put a chip on his shoulder down there in New Orleans. My defensive player of the year is going to be, I think, Hassan Whiteside. I think he's going to keep the Heat competitive. Now, I also realize the huge boomer bust potential with a Hassan Whiteside. He's had attitude issues. He's had lack of effort outside of blocking shots. There's been times where he hasn't wanted to do all the things necessary, but I think he's going to realize, and Spoelstra and Riley are great at giving guys roles and having them excel in those roles and taking on new roles and responsibilities. When Zoe and those guys retired and passed the torch to Dwayne and what he did for the last decade or so with Miami, I think there's some new torches being passed, and Hassan, I think, is going to be the cornerstone of that franchise for a while, and so I expect him to have a huge year on the glass, both defensive, blocking shots, hedging screens. I think he's got the athleticism to be just a tenacious defender, so I expect him to take that leap, but I also recognize he could fall flat on his face there. My rookie of the year pick, and this is something I just think it'll happen by virtue of the amount he gets used. I think Ben Simmons, I don't know if he's going to play this year with that foot injury, but if he plays, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say, so if he plays, that's a big caveat.
If he plays. Now, that's if he plays. Now, if he does the red shirt thing, which is probably what they're leaning towards, but I think even if he's playing a prorated amount of games, I don't like Marquise Chris very much. I don't like obviously Brandon Ingram's going to be coming off the bench. So some of your top rookies, I don't, and then obviously you've got some of the foreigners who are escaping me right now, but I just think off of a pure usage alone, if he gets on the floor for say 50 games, say he plays after All-Star break, I think that's long enough to run away with the award. He's going to be heavily anticipated, and I just don't foresee anybody who's truly going to be used as much as he has the opportunity to be used if he plays. Now, that's a huge caveat, so I'll give a secondary pick who I think has a much more likely chance to win the award based on how much he'll play and anticipating that he's healthy this year. I like Joel Embiid if he still can win the award. I know he hasn't played a full season yet, so I don't know if they'll allow him to still be in the running for that award.
I think he technically can win the award.
So if Embiid can win the award, I like him to win it. I think that he's played well to the few high. Again, I didn't watch full Sixers preseason games. I don't know if anybody could stomach that, but the highlights I did see, the things I'm hearing, I like him a lot. I think what they've done in Philly, just by compiling this much young talent, they're going to be somewhat fun to watch this year. Colangelo's come in and just pretty much scrapped everything Sam Hinkie was trying to pull together and said, we're just going to let these young guys play, and we're going to stop trying this process thing and start trying to put it to work. So I expect that the rookie of the year will come from Philly just by virtue of them having so many top picks. But also I think that Ben Simmons is the most talented rookie if he plays. I don't think he's going to need much more than after the All-Star break to run away with that award. And then for my coach of the year, this one's a little bit more difficult without having as much time as I would like to really dig into rosters and teams and everything. I do think, based just on where I've got them picked, and everybody knows he's a good coach, but I think Brad Stevens is going to be the coach of the year for me. I think he's going to have the Celtics possibly with the best record in the league at one point this season. I think they're going to go on that one of those type of runs. I think they're on the same page. Again, like I said, you got Isaiah Thomas leading the charge, undersized, scrappy. You got Olenek and some other guys inside. I think Sullinger, who's another undersized. So they really just have an underdog roster. And I think Brad Stevens is a great communicator and will be able to kind of keep his group humble and keep his group focused, and complacency, if they do get on the type of role I think they can, I don't think complacency will set in. They seem like a team that can run off 14, 15 straight. So I do think that he's going to be my coach of the year, I would assume. That's just what I think. My sixth man, I'm going to kind of go with that experiment. Zebo, I think, down in Memphis. I think that'll be interesting to watch. It's not a sexy pick. It's not flashy at all, but I think he's going to still be Zebo and be Zebo on a really good Memphis team. And so I think he will. And then also in turn, by being a sixth man, I think he'll be more effective in the spurts and in the spots that he's in. So I do like him as a sixth man candidate. Most improved. Haven't given that one as much thought as I'd like either. But I think my most improved player looks like right now D'Angelo Russell. The way he put up a couple 30 pieces during the preseason, obviously seems to be more and more comfortable. And he's going to play the minutes. There's no question the minutes will be there for him. So I think he's poised to take that leap as the most improved player. I was really shocked to see him continually, whether it's summer league, preseason, late last year. It seems he takes and makes the big shot for everything that he is as a, goofball off the court, bonehead, whatever you want to call him. Takes and makes big shots, and clearly is talented. So I think the most improved player will be D'Angelo Russell.
I do the Brad Stevens pick, I think, is probably the most wise pick. For some reason, to give context, last year I had the Boston Celtics not even making the playoffs. I've got something against the Celtics internally. I don't know why.
Well,
I know.
Man, I'm a Lakers fan. Like, come on.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, it took I put them at the 3 seed, and I still don't feel good about that. I think they're going to be disappointing, and that's with knowing what a great team player Al Horford is. Maybe I'm just sour because Al Horford's on the Celtics now, but I do think that's a wise pick. If you're handicapping it, Brad Stevens should be the coach of the year just because I believe, other than Popovich, obviously, he's the best coach in the league right now.
And just to go back real quick and clarify, Ben Simmons, the coach is saying, Brett Brown's saying he'll be back in January. I think that gets pushed to All-Star break. So I think we'll get about 30 games to see him. And I think that, yeah.
You really think that he'll win it in that few games? You think he's that polarizing of a player?
I think he's that polarizing of a player. I think he's that talented of a player. And I honestly, unless somebody – and if he comes back after the All-Star break, I think he'll be heavily anticipated. And it's a possibility. I would love to be wrong because that would mean that there's a lot of great rookies playing better than I anticipate. But like a guy like Marquise Chris, who, in my opinion, he's only good for catching alley-oops and, pick and roll dunks. If he is the brass of this class, then I just think that this class really, and Brandon Ingram, I think there's a lot to be there's a lot to be improved with his game, aside from any strength issues you have. So I'm just looking at the top of this draft, and I just don't really like any of them to make a huge impact. I think Ben is by and far the most talented and will probably be the most used. So we'll see if the voters feel that way and if he runs away with it. But just wanted to clarify that he is slated to come back in January.
So you still – I went about half and half, same picks as you on this, Kevin. My MVP and Defensive Player of the Year is going to be the same guy, and y'all can probably guess who it's going to be. I got Kawhi Leonard doing what only Olajuwon and Jordan have done. Now, granted, the Defensive Player of the Year award didn't exist pre 84, 83, something like that. But I think Kawhi absolutely goes off. It's going to be interesting to see because it's Popovich, and he doesn't really – let a guy become the guy and take over as a superstar the way he coaches. But I'm going to be interested to see if that kind of happens with the Spurs this year. We should see a little bit of shift in how they play if he can take over. But I got him winning both. I think, like I said before, I think he's the best player in the league right now besides LeBron James, which I hate saying, but oh well, I got to say it. Rookie of the Year, I went Homer. I went Brandon Ingram. I think he's starting I think he's starting before too long this season. Randall's really getting a lot of people upset the way he's playing. He's not really improving any. I think he ends up falling out of the starting lineup. I think Ingram gets in the starting lineup, and they shift on what kind of size they want to play on the starting five and get Ingram in there. And I think that he just has enough opportunity to score points, and I think he's going to score a lot of points. And he's going to be that flashy guy. Someone to look out for, though, Kevin, you must not like him at all because if you think Anthony Davis is winning an MVP, you got to think Buddy Hield's going to be poised to have a great season on that roster.
Buddy's a good player, but there's just no way the guy plays well enough to be a Rookie of the Year. He's a shooter, and
is he any different than Jimmer Fredette?
Yeah, honestly. He appears.
Oh yeah, he's different.
Well, he just appears to be better at what Jimmer was trying to do, which is be lethal with your range and then allow that to build the rest of your game. So I think Buddy's better than Jimmer was at that. But he really, even when I watch his highlights this preseason, he's really just a shooter. I mean, not to try to pitch, and that sounds like I'm being negative, but I'm just saying, in order for me to vote, if I had a vote, my rookie year would have to be a guy who's impacting his team, not just having the best numbers as a rookie, but impacting his team in a way and leading, if possible, his team in a way that's resulting in wins and stats. And Buddy's just not going to be that significant of a contributor. I mean, he's going to be, probably 10 to 11 points a night, hit some big shots. But I just don't think he's going to have enough of. He's not going to move the needle enough in the assist, and he's not going to rebound. Certainly, I haven't seen it, so I don't want to write it off. But he's certainly not known for anything on the other end of the floor. So I just don't see it with Buddy.
I think you guys are being overly generous to Buddy. I think we see this type of player every 3 or 4 years, and all the rest of these guys I'm going to name are white. So I guess that's not a direct comparison. But you had Adam Morrison come out, and I see this as a similar type, a volume scorer in college who can't really do anything else. You had, like I had mentioned before, you had Jimmer Fredette. I think the ceiling for what we can see from Buddy Hield is if he can become a J.J. Redick type of player, if he can add a couple different elements to his game and still be a lethal shooter. I think if the Pelicans got that out of him, they would be absolutely thrilled. But like you said, Kevin, I even if he does shoot the lights out, I don't think that's enough to win Rookie of the Year. You've got to be a multi-dimensional player and show that you're going to be a pillar to build a team around to win the Rookie of the Year.
Agreed.
All right. Glad I sparked some good talk there. Coach of the Year. I also have Brad Stevens. Celtics are phenomenal this year. As much as it pains me, it's awful, but I got to say what I think. I think he's a great coach. If it's not him, I also put in there Quinn Snyder, if I'm correct about the Utah Jazz making the playoffs, just because everyone will be like, wait, why are the Jazz in the playoffs? Their coach must be really damn good because the Jazz shouldn't be in the playoffs. Because you see that a lot with these teams that haven't been up there for a while and then have a great year. Everyone's like, well, this coach has got to be the next big thing, right? Because how else could they do it?
Yeah,
that's not.
And I just not to slow us down too much, but I do have to caution you that I think the Jazz have stockpiled some talent there. There's no question that Rudy Gobert is a great rim protector. Gordon Hayward is, one of those great, just young players. And then you've got Dante Exum coming off the injury. We'll see where he is. So I think there's some pieces there. Definitely can't write them out as being under talented. I think if they wound up in the playoffs, to the casual fan, you're right. You're just like, what are the Jazz doing here? If Karl Malone and John Stockton aren't there, this team is irrelevant. But if you peel back and if you're not just a casual fan, you'll see that they've been a great defensive team the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's all. I just wanted to add that there with the Jazz.
That's definitely a good point. The voters obviously are going to be more informed than an average fan. They're going to see that. But it still takes a good coach to bring that talent together.
Certainly.
So hopefully there's dark horse. I completely forgot that I had most improved. I'm going to throw a random name that probably has no chance. But if the Magic can do something, Ibaka is going to be in that talk. If he can play really well in a new city after all the criticism he was getting in Oklahoma City year and lead the Magic to the playoffs, maybe he might be in that discussion. So right now we're going to do a little quick thing.
Real quick before we move on. And I think it's pretty shocking that none of us mentioned Chris Dunn in the Rookie of the Year discussion, and that none of us mentioned the Timberwolves anywhere near the playoffs. I think that Chris Dunn, I believe, is the odds-on favorite to win the award right now because no one believes Ricky Rubio can do anything. Wow. I'm just shocked that none of us put it, and I agree with everyone here. I don't think the Timberwolves are there yet. I think within the next 5 years, they're one of the contending teams in the league. But that just shocked me that no one mentioned him. And then, Palmer, since you mentioned the Magic, I think Hazonia is a guy also who has a chance to really improve this year and take some steps. I hate that we are giving the Magic so much credit right now. And I almost want to just revise my pick to say that they're going to finish last in the East because I hate the Magic. But I do think that they end up playing better and might garner some awards, like you said, with Ibaka or possibly even Hazonia really improving.
Yeah, I agree. It is a little interesting that none of us mentioned Chris Dunn. And I think mine was really, it was a little bit of just expecting that a point guard with a scorer like Jimmy Butler, a coach who preaches, good offense, moving the ball, all those things. It'd be a little bit shocking, honestly, for a point to win this award. And I think Michael Carter Williams actually did win it a couple years ago, but it'd be a little shocking to me to see Chris Dunn win it. But that is the odds-on favorite, and I think he has proved over the summer and just all his entire time in college that he's a two-way point guard, huge, 6'4" kid. So he's got all the intangible, not the intangible, but all the measurables to win it. But it just would shock me actually.
For the odds thing, yeah, Chris Dunn is odds on. Guess who's number 2 right now on 5 dimes, which is a pretty good sign for this. It is Buddy Hield. Favorite,
Wow.
barely behind Chris Dunn to win it. And then Simmons is still there in third with Ingram behind him and Embiid behind them, and then the odds just jump like to crazy odds for other players. But so that's kind of according to 5 dimes. That's the 5 guys that are really have a chance for it. We're gonna move on here. Are you on the echo or is that just me?
Yeah, I'm hearing a little static. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Yeah, Palmer, you sound like you're underwater in bad cell reception.
Great.
Wait, that sounded better.
Yeah, just no. All right, I'm gonna try unplugging my headphones and see if if you hear any more echoes, tell me. Let's see.
Yeah, it didn't get any better, but
what happened here? Sorry to the viewers, I don't know what's going on with my sound right now.
Do you want us just to move on to over?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, whoever has their headphones out, it might be creating feedback. I don't know if anyone else is hearing that.
Yeah, did you
let's see. Yeah, I went once your sound did that, I thought it was me. I had unplugged them. They're back in now.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's better.
Sorry about that, viewers. I know that we deal with that sometimes. That's why it's called Amateur Analyst Podcast. So yeah, as Doobie said, we're going to move into our team's predictions because we love talking about our own teams and fun. So Doobie's going to give you a little Hawks preview. Kevin's going to give you a little Hornets preview. We'll talk a little Lakers, and then since nobody commented on other teams they want, we'll move on to the next topic. So Doobie, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Hawks go, I'm obviously a homer, and I'm not nearly as negative on them as the rest of this group is. I have much more faith in Schroeder. As someone who watched nearly every game last year, I think that he is a guy with a lot of talent, and he is young, and you got to remember he's a foreign player. I don't think people acknowledge that enough, is that he's still learning the American game. I think that I personally would rather have him running the team than having both him and Teague. We needed to keep one of them, and if you're going to keep one, you got to pick the guy who you can build towards the future with. I think Teague has hit his ceiling. Schroeder has, kind of like what we talked about with Chris Dunn, he has the measurables and a lot of talent to be able to be a great point guard. We just need to see his intangibles improve. For me, you re-sign Bazemore. Do I think Bazemore is worth that contract? Given the market and where it's at right now, yeah. What happened in free agency, I think he's worth it. But do I think in an open market, and I'm looking at all the contracts in the league, do I think he's worth what he got? Absolutely not. I think what he did last year is about as good as he's going to do. And I think that's what we see again this year. But he's a nice piece. You got Millsap. I'm still convinced he's a top 30, maybe even 25 player. He's a great teammate. He can do everything on the court, really. Great defender, great low post. He can shoot the ball from mid-range. I love Millsap, and I think if Dwight Howard can be competent, you're going to see the Atlanta Hawks surprise some people. More than any other team, I would say that if Dwight Howard, everyone's so down on Dwight Howard, I think he's another guy who could win Most Improved Player of the Year, honestly, because he is such a media figure. If he starts going off, he's going to get the media attention, and he could win that award. But, he's not past the age. He hasn't really showed any physical signs of deterioration. It's been mental, almost everything that we've seen. And he still put up great stats. It just seems that he can't work together with anyone. In Atlanta, that's his hometown, with a team where he can be the star again. If he can get back to the form that he played in, and not obviously the exact form, because he's a much older guy now, that he played with in Orlando, this Hawks team could surprise people. Do I think he'll get all the way there? No. Do I think he'll be better than he was with the Rockets? Yes. So I think that the Hawks middle of the pack in the East. That's also because I think that Kyle Korver is past his prime and is going to get way too much playing time. He regressed last season. I think he's going to regress even more this season. And the fact that you don't really have a ton of depth. I love that they brought in a couple point guards to back up Schroeder, but I still don't know that the depth is there to propel them to getting into the top 3 seeds. That being said, if Dwight can play at 80% of Orlando Magic Dwight, I think that you can see the Hawks maybe grab a 2 seed.
Okay.
All right, Kevin, what you got on the Hornets?
Well, mine's going to be a little less optimistic. The Hornets didn't really do much in terms of replacing some of the offense we lost. Al Jefferson's walked in free agency. Courtney Lee left. And I believe Brian Roberts also is gone, or maybe he might have been re-signed. Let me scroll here. Yeah, no, I don't believe we signed him back. So those are 3 pieces that actually we did sign Brian Roberts back. I apologize.
It was Lynn. Lynn left, right?
Jeremy Lin. I knew we'd lost another piece. And, those are 3 pieces that I don't think at all can be, you can shake a stick at. Specifically Courtney Lee. He's one of those, I feel like in every sport and almost every few years there's a journeyman that you just ask, why is he a journeyman? I mean, Courtney Lee's been a solid 2-way player, has improved his 3-point shooting. I mean, he's one of those guys that you just wonder, why does he not find a home? And I think it's partially because everybody's always trading for him. He's a great player. So losing Jeremy Lin, who's, had his ups and downs, and then losing Big Al, who was a great bench scorer, one of the true low post back to the baskets, that is going to be tough to replace. We did try to add some pieces to kind of stop the bleeding, but we didn't do much. I believe we signed Nicholas Batum back which was way too much. Really hamstrings us going forward. But Rick Cho, our GM, who was not really the architect of the Portland Trail Blazers as we know him, but was there. That's what he thinks is best, so that's what we got. But signed Batum back. Kemba Walker's still there, a great young point guard, one of the better ball handlers in the league, and just a true gritty scorer. Marco Bellinelli, we signed him, journeyman 3-point shooter. Should provide some bench scoring for us that we'll see if he's able to do it. I remember watching him very closely last year in Sacramento because I was really watching to see, if DeMarcus was going to take that step. And that Marco didn't really have a great year. So we'll see what we get from him. There's a Travion Graham who I won't even pretend to know anything about, who's on the roster. Aaron Harrison, one of the twins from Kentucky, is on the roster. Still paying Spencer Hawes to be a professional basketball player, which leaves me scratching my head. And then Big Frank Kaminsky, who we're hoping makes leaps and bounds in year 2, which I think he should. He proved that he can still shoot the ball with range. The line being deeper didn't hurt him much by way of making big shots. Didn't prove much on the other end. Isn't a rebounder at all, essentially. So we'll see what he's able to do in year 2. Jeremy Lamb, who's kind of an enigma, man. And some games you get 18 and 7 boards, and you're thinking this guy's turning a corner. And then other nights he's just not there. So our roster really is a great, snapshot of what our season is going to look like. Ups and downs. Not sure what we're going to get. I expect that we'll be fighting for the 7th or 8th seed at the end of the year, but there's no telling. Steve Clifford, is going to do his best to have his team defending and being competitive. Am I breaking up? It looks
Oh,
like
you're
I
good.
was breaking. Yeah, so he's going to do his best to have his team competitive. Last year, if you remember, again, with those pieces that I mentioned that we've lost, we took the Heat to 7 games. Really should have, if not for our one crazed fan in the purple shirt who just decided to piss D Wade off, really might have won that series. So this team has a chance, but not to make any type of push into the second round. And really, I don't want to get us too much on a tangent, but it really, for me, it makes me question why not just blow it up. I mean, maybe try to keep Kemba. We've obviously just locked into Nicholas Batum long term, so blowing it up is out of the picture. But I would have liked to see us just blow it all the way up. And I'm not really a fan of tanking, but when the system encourages you to either be shooting upwards or quickly in the dumps, why not do it? I mean, there's nothing for the last 3 or 4 years. Our team is middled around with that 8 seed. Even going back to the last year is the Bobcats when we had Steven Jackson, or maybe the second to last year is the Bobcats when we were the 8 seed. Then I mean, we just year after year we're just 8 seed doormat, sell some playoff tickets, and come back next year. So hate to see it, but that's what I expect from us.
So I'm gonna be pretty quick at the Lakers because we got to pace a little bit here. We're a little over an hour running. Um, we've already talked a decent amount about what I would talk about. Kevin talked a good bit about D'Angelo. He's an exciting guy coming up. Ingram obviously is a rookie. I'm excited to see. He's been playing pretty well in preseason. Jordan Clarkson doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion. I think Jordan Clarkson's a really, really phenomenal guard in this league. I think he's got the ability to be a great player and the NBA for a very long time. Great scorer, great ball handler, good passer, plays defense, really hard worker on the floor. He might be my favorite Laker right now. We'll see if one of the other young guys can step up and take that. Mozgov, obviously, we paid way too much money, but we had a ton of extra money, so I can't get that mad at it. I mean, the Lakers aren't broke by any means. But I think he'll be a nice little piece inside of the 5. He'll help us out. He'll help us improve on defense for sure. If I think his contract was a joke. Luol Deng will be a nice little piece off the bench. He's gonna be playing some solid minutes for us. He'll be a lot of help to kind of lead those players along. And of course, the most important player on the team who just made the roster as of today is Meta World Peace.
No,
And I heard something today. I heard something today on the radio, which is it's kind of ridiculous, but it's actually true. Guy teaching the young guys what it's like to be a Laker, which I'm thinking back to when he won 10 years ago. Yeah, in 10 years, Ron Artest is going to be the Lakers vet teaching people how to play in LA. I would have thought that even had a chance in hell. So that's kind of interesting to see him being that vet presence that's been in that locker room for a while. But I do want to say I love me some Luke Walton. I am so happy we hired him as our head coach. Every time he was hurt when he was a player on the Lakers, he would be in a suit right next to Phil Jackson as his assistant coach. Every time he had an injury, basically coaching our entire game during the game.
yeah,
He's been doing it for a while. He learned under Kerr, who obviously has a lot of good principles he teaches. Walton's going to be around for a while. We won't make the playoffs for a few years, but as long as we stick with Walton, expecting this to be a build, and we see some improvement from these young guys, I think he's the head coach for the foreseeable future. That may be the most exciting thing for me as far as the Lakers' future goes is him as the head coach. We're going to move on. We're going to run through the next segment pretty quick. Just the best over and under bets for win totals. Sometimes you see some crazy win totals. I know what your favorite over bet's going to be based on the rest of your discussion so far. You were mute. Sorry, so somehow you got muted. Hold on.
I muted
gotta
myself.
unmute you now.
It's okay. Sorry. Um, actually, my favorite over bet is not the Suns. Although
Okay.
I do think that is a pretty big spread. I did predict the Grizzlies to be the 2nd seed in the West, and they're currently at 43.5. So I mean, I guess if I'm thinking about it, the Suns probably by the number of wins is a better bet based on what I said. That being said, that's a much more volatile pick by me, in my opinion, than the Grizzlies. I think 43.5 is an incredibly low number for the Grizzlies, and I don't really understand why they would be set there. And then from what I found, the Warriors are currently at 66.5.
Yeah.
That is, I would go. I want to go so far under that. I think that they will, if they're lucky, get to the point that they're at their title season, which I believe was 63, or was it 68?
I think it was high 60s, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, then I definitely don't think they get to that. If it was 63, they might get there. I think they're sitting around 60, 59 to 61. I absolutely 100% bet the under every single day of the week with that one.
Kevin, did you come up with something for this?
Yeah, I did. Just looking really quickly. I thought that the Oklahoma City Thunder at 45.5. I thought that one was probably going to be. It probably wasn't too wild, but it was one that if I was going to place a bet, I would have bet on that. I would have bet the over on that. I think the sheer ability of a Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams pick and roll with the shooters I mentioned before to space the floor, that's good for probably 20 wins. I think that they're able to go to the Eastern Conference and take care of business there. I think they probably come in pretty close to that number. I think it's accurate, but I would really be shocked if they don't win 50 games.
All right. Do you have an under as well, or just an over?
Just the over. I didn't really didn't really have too much time, but that was probably the over that the one that I saw that I said, well, I probably would jump on that, and that might just be me thinking of the Thunder historically. There was a KD Russell operation, so they could tank and be 39 and whatever, but so.
So my over, I did it. I went homer. The Lakers were only slated for 24 wins. I think we top 24 wins. I think we get up near 30, especially if Kevin's right and D'Angelo's getting most improved player if he's putting up great numbers. I just think we have a little more complete team and a little more depth with the moves we made. Got some good veteran presences, and obviously you don't have the Kobe retirement year looming over, which a lot of the young guys have talked about. They didn't even feel like Russell said, I feel like I didn't really have a rookie season, and I can't even blame him for saying that because it's around Kobe's final year. So I think we easily get over 24, even though I don't have I'm going Lakers there. And then the under, I'm going the Chicago Bulls. I do not like many things about that roster. They have 3 guards that are like the top 200 in guard 3-point shooting percentage over the past 4 years now. I don't see how in this NBA you're going to win a lot of games if you just don't have guys that can make threes, not hit threes at above like 25%. I just can't see you doing much. I got them with the under. I think it's going to be a really rough year in Chicago. And look out for the Knicks going under if you see a few big injuries. If they get those injuries on those old knees that they got running, then they might drop down pretty quickly. The real quick topic. The first team that's going to start tanking this season, Doobie.
I'm not going to extend this very long, but just to further my non-belief in the Celtics, I actually have the 6-seed Chicago Bulls taking the Celtics out of the playoffs. So I disagree with you on that over-under total. But the first team that's going to start tanking, I think, to me, this is the most obvious question we've asked all day. It's Sacramento. Not only do I think they're going to start tanking by way of not playing well, but I think they're finally going to move Boogie. I think they're going to get about 20 games into this season. They're going to have less than 5 wins, and they're going to realize that it's time to start shopping this guy. He's going to just stop playing. I think his tweet at draft time when they traded for Giorgio Papagiannis or whatever the hell his name is, some guy that no one's ever heard of, and maybe the silliest draft pick I've ever seen on draft day. And Boogie's going for real on Twitter. I don't think anyone should have empathy for him, but in this situation, we kind of got to feel bad for the guy. I mean, that city deserves a better team for all the effort that they put in to keep the team there. And this is just absolutely – Vlade Divac should be exiled to whatever country he came from because he's doing an awful job. But yeah, I think they move Boogie to a team like the Suns or someone who is playing up above their ability, who still has a lot of young prospects. The Celtics, if they do what you two are saying they will do, I think are another team that you could see that happen with. They don't have obviously the leverage that they had last season, but you could definitely still see them move some pieces. And just there's enough teams I think that if they start really playing terribly, they'll move the farm. Someone will move the farm to get Boogie. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I agree with a lot of what was said there. I think the first thing to start tanking, in my estimation, is going to be, and I really would like to pick two, because I think both of these teams have no incentive to try to, be better. I think that the Milwaukee Bucks, although they're building something there, I think they've been creative at times. Jason Kidd, if you remember, even tried to do the fake water spill to get an extra timeout. I think that they're going to get to a point in the year where they're just going to really experiment with lineups. They're probably going to be too good to do this, but it would be cool to see him throw it in the NBA's face, have a team that could fight into that 7-6 seed, and then just go the other direction, try to get a lottery pick, and really, take the league by storm the next year. So that's more of a who I'd like to see tank, just to see them get better, because I think that's really the only way to do it. If you're not going to do it through the draft, then how are you going to do it? Because free agents now are going to take, max deals are crazy. So that's what I think. The Bucks.
I'm glad that you brought the Bucks up so that I can shit on myself again. I picked the Bucks to win the East last year, and they didn't make the playoffs. In this podcast a year ago, I picked the Bucks.
I had forgotten about that. I wish I'd remembered that
to
one.
win the East. So
wow.
I think I deserve to probably be muted for this entire episode just because of that. But I was waiting until someone brought it up to hope that I could completely shit on myself. Not as bad as picking Oregon to beat Washington, but pretty close.
But close, yeah.
Yeah, I went the Kings as well, Doobie. I think you hit a lot of that on the head. Even with that insane new arena they had, it's supposed to be the best arena in the NBA now. A lot of people want to go with the Nets on this. I think the Nets are going to be tanking, but the Nets don't have their first round pick, so tanking doesn't really do anything for them. They still might lose most games because they're absolutely terrible this year, in my opinion. I think their win total with Vegas was 20.5.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they go over that.
I almost picked them as the under just to have fun with it, but God, that's just not a lot of games at all.
But how awesome would it be to see Lynn go vintage Lynn though? Now he's back in New York and just start pouring in 30 a night. This guy's getting MVP votes at the end of the season. The Nets win like 38 games. I think that's sad that I just said like they've got an MVP candidate and their ceiling is 38 games to win, but that would be awesome.
I don't even. Their ceiling's way under 38 games.
No, I'm saying if Lynn was scoring 35 a night.
Yeah, maybe. All right, so we only got, let's see, more topics left. Just one is the 76ers thing. And Kevin, you already kind of gave an answer on what you think. You think they got this kind of turned around from this crap we've seen from them for the past few years. Mm-hmm. Just stockpiling big draft picks that never play a game and all this stuff. And then with the Simmons injury, everyone's like, here we go again. Simmons is never going to play. I am inclined to slightly agree with you that I think they're kind of turning the corner. Got some different people controlling the things and making the decisions. They need to make a trade. If they don't make a trade this year for one of those big men, I would still worry a little bit, but they've got to make a trade at some point. They don't need all those guys that they have. They can't use them all at the same time. But I think they're kind of moving in the right direction. Doobie, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think the key to this all along has been Joel Embiid. They've held on to this guy because he's not going to have trade value without showing what he can do. He never really was able to show what he could do at Kansas. This organization has always believed in him. I think they believe in him more than they believe in Okafor. But depending on what they can get for the two players, I think one of those two is gone. And depending on what the return is, this could end up being a really good team going forward. I mean, we all made fun of the Timberwolves organization for years. What are they doing? what's going on over there. And now look, they've turned the corner to where none of us picked them to make the playoffs this year, but a lot of people are picking them as a trendy pick to slip into the West playoffs. And I don't think anyone in that's looking at the NBA who has any knowledge is not picking them to be a contender within the next 5 years. I think that the Sixers could do something similar. They've got to make a trade, like you said, but Embiid's been the key all along. And I think if he could come back and start showing to be a good player, he's got a great personality. The stuff that he does on social media and always messing around is hilarious. Tweeting at LeBron, like, how come you didn't come to the Sixers and all this kind of stuff. I think that in a big market, he could be a real star if he can show it on the court. So
he also has been requested when they call his name to start a game to be called Joel the Process Embiid when they announce him in the starting lineup. Kevin, any more thoughts on the Sixers?
No, I think I summed it up, man. They've changed who they got making decisions. That should be enough for them to finally just get out there and just play again. I think they've been too methodical, and Sam Hinkie was on the right track, but the part that he left out was these are human beings, and not everything works in a purely mathematical or statistical best, let's calculate the best way to do this, that, and the third. It's still a game of basketball, and that's the people you're dealing with are basketball players, and you got to go out there and be trying to win. It's just tough for guys to buy in when you're not trying to win. So,
and then finally, it's what gets talked about on most NBA previews I've listened to and seen, and it's the title conversation. And I mean, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, Golden State and Cleveland are in the finals. I don't see how they're not. It's the NBA, it's sports. You never know, but I think they both end up there. So really the question is, what is the realistic goals for a lot of the teams in this league? Obviously, San Antonio is going to have the goals of winning the title because it's San Antonio's Popovich. But looking at the odds to win the title, after San Antonio, who I think is 11-1, Boston's the next best at 25-1, and then it's just jumping to like 60-1. Like, nobody expects anybody else to really be in the picture. So just what do you guys think about who's really got realistic title aspirations this season?
I'm going to put money on it. I believe it wholly and truly. I think the Spurs are going to win the title this year. I think they take out the Warriors, not even in the conference finals. I think they take them out in the second round as the 4 seed playing the 1. I will be, for full disclosure for anyone who doesn't text with me constantly during the NBA season, I hate the Warriors probably more than any other human being on earth. And and when Kevin Durant signed with the Warriors, it caused me to go into a downward spiral where I drank all day and threw up in an Uber. That's a true thing. I swear to God. But I am so negative. My opinion of the Warriors, I can't stand Draymond Green. I can't stand the way that Curry acts when he crosses himself up like he's a prophet every time he hits a 3. So I am biased. But I think that Paul Gasol going in the place of Tim Duncan was a shell last year. I mean, he really was. We all love him, but he retired at the right time. Paul Gasol still has a lot in him. He is the perfect replacement, both attitude-wise and his skill set. Both me and Palmer have talked about Kawhi Leonard, what we believe of him. I think a big piece is I love Patty Mills as the backup point guard to Tony Parker. I think he's going to take an increased role as Tony moves towards retirement, and I think he's going to show himself to be the heir apparent to that position in San Antonio. So I love the Spurs. I think they're winning the title. I think they're playing the Cavs. I don't think anyone in the East can even contend slightly with the Cavs. So no, in the East there's nobody. But in the West, give me the Spurs all day, every day, over the Warriors. The only team that I'd have even slightly near a 20-1 title odd other than those 3 would be the Trailblazers, just because I think they take a big step forward.
Okay. Some very colorful analysis about the Warriors. That was great. I think I can't disagree. I think the Spurs are probably the only other team poised, and I really won't add anything there. I think other teams can fight at it, but it just kind of speaks to what the way the NBA has pretty much always been. There's always only a few teams in every era that really are able to year after year compete for championships. There's just not the parity you see in the NFL because it's just so easy for a few players to dictate the game. That's why whatever team LeBron James has been on, regardless of what team it is or the team makeup, they are contenders. And that's just the way the NBA is. That's the nature of the game of basketball. You don't have the best players, you don't have a chance. And there's only so many superstars. So I just agree that there's not very many teams who have a realistic chance. And that's every year. So
what do you do as a coach in that team? I mean, all these guys, like, they're going to say to the media, yeah, well, we think we're still better. We think we can win. But, like, they know they can't. They know that most teams in the league know they don't have a chance.
That's not necessarily true, though, because you look at a team – I'll just give two examples. You look at a team like the Hawks who have a Dwight Howard. You can say to Dwight Howard, you've done it once. You've brought a team that had no business being there to the finals all by yourself. You can do it again. You look at a team like the Pacers. Paul George brought that team within a game that they really probably should have beaten the Cavs to win. So I think there's inspiration there. You look at the Clippers. You say you guys have the most talented roster in the NBA. There's no reason why we shouldn't be the best team. There's inspiration. Obviously, if you're looking at a team like the Nets, you're not talking to them before the season. I don't think that if their coaches say to them, like, we can win it all this year, that coach should be fired because that's not the approach to take for that team. But I think there are teams – especially like you look at Russell Westbrook. For almost every team that we named in the playoffs, I think you can make an argument to those players that they would believe. Do we believe it? Not necessarily, but do the players believe it? They've got to, or they probably shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, there's a level of like hard work, odds beating, if that's even a phrase, that goes into being an NBA player. And some guys are so God gifted with their talent that you're like, well, they were always born to play, but they had to dedicate themselves to it, and they had to be able to channel that and not let that gift get distracted. And so when the guys do make it to the NBA, I think it's difficult for any of them to say, I can't do X, Y, and Z. And a championship being one of those things that I think all 30 teams, I really firmly believe that all 30 teams at some point go into the season believing things could go that direction. Now, there has to be some realism. So there's some teams who know we're not ready now, but we're damn sure going to play our best every night and see what happens. I mean, for me, it's easy, and I know some players who can and some players who can't. I can go into a game saying, this team is 10 points, 15 points better than us. I expect, and it's weird to say that, but I've always had the realism to know that I expect it's going to be tough to win this game, probably lose this game. But that gets blocked out when it's getting ready to get tipped off. You're just at that point, you're just playing. And that's why you play the games, is to see what happens. And so I think the teams try to take it that way. Take it one, and it's so cliche, but you really do try to take it one game at a time and then just see if, holy crap, we're 2 games out of the playoff. And then once you get in the playoffs, it really is, although basketball, because it's such a long series, it really does usually the cream rises to the top. But if you could just get in the playoffs, then you have a chance to say, then hell, anything can happen. So,
all right. Well, I'm glad that sparked exactly the kind of conversation I wanted it to. So I'm glad that was had. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of teams we see really playing up above their level this year. So yeah, any other thoughts, guys? That's the end of our agenda on the NBA preview. Doobie, you got anything else you want to add or close out with for NBA?
No, I mean, I guess the only thing I'll say is that the Knicks have better odds to win the East than the Hawks. I think that is absurd. Derrick Rose might tear an ACL while committing a crime. But, I mean, honestly, if D-Wade had gone to the Knicks, I'd like the Knicks to actually contend as like the superpower of old men. I think that would have been fantastic. I would have loved to see that. But without that presence that can bring that team together, Melo's not a leader. Derrick Rose is not a leader. Certainly, Joakim Noah is not a leader. And Kristaps Porzingis doesn't speak English. So I'll go ahead and say that the Hawks finish above the Knicks. That's my last statement on that.
All right, Kevin, you got anything to close out NBA preview?
No, man, I appreciate y'all having me on. I appreciate the opportunity. It was great chopping it up with y'all, and look forward to checking out some more of y'all's podcasts as the year goes on.
Yeah, we'll probably be back on for some more NBA talks too if you're ever available. I know Dubia and I are going to do some quick college football if you want to stay on. If not, no worries. It's not going to be a whole lot. Just we got to get some of it.
Yeah, got to do it. Well, look, I'm going to tap out, but I appreciate y'all having me on, man.
Appreciate you coming on, Kevin. Great insight, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one, man.
All right, now.
All right, so Doobie, it's just you and me. We've never done just 2 men. We've never done just 3 men. So, yeah, that sounded terrible. Anyway, I know you had a few things you wanted to talk about college football before we logged off tonight. So I'll let you start it off. I don't have the college football agenda up in front of me. I didn't know if you wanted to use it at all or anything.
Let's just go at it real quick.
What you got?
First thing is, I call you out directly, sir. Just me and you looking at each other. Last week, you said that you were convinced that I just pick Arkansas against Arkansas because I really love Brett Bielema. I do not just pick against Arkansas because I really love Brett Bielema. I can't stand Brett Bielema. I think he is a fat asshole, and I was proven correct this week when he went out and put out maybe the worst SEC performance of all time. That's overboard. Even I'll recognize that as talking shit about Brett Bielema. But that was so bad. I picked Auburn to cover that 10. I was pretty confident in it. Arkansas is not a good team. Brett Bielema should be on the hot seat. I don't know why he's not. Maybe it's because he's too big to fit in the seat. But the guy should be gone. He's never achieved anything at that school. He's only underachieved. And, to me, I'll continue to pick against them, and I'm very happy that happened.
I thought for sure you were going with the reverse mush, like just because you always just talk about your love for him on the podcast, and you always pick them. And I was sitting there, I was like, I know he's just picking against them now, hoping they win every time, like as a reverse.
No, I swear I only pick Arkansas against Alabama because of last year when Brett had that wonderful fake, like getting pushed, falling on the field that inspired me to speak about Brett Bielema every week. That was the moment. So I picked them to beat Bama. I don't think I picked them other than TCU because I had a feeling about that game. I don't think I picked them other than that this year. I can't stand Arkansas. I think that they're going to implode, and I think Brett Bielema deserves to be fired. Credit to Gus Malzahn. He has brought that team back. I think I said it at one point that I thought that Auburn was the best chance to beat Alabama before the season, but I think that certainly seems to be the case now, them and LSU.
Yeah, can't forget about that, though.
Yeah. Well, I've talked enough about him. I won't even go into that. The other point I want to make, and I am going to go to the tape here. I've got to just play this little clip. This is from our season debut this year when we did our first podcast. We did our college football preview. I just have to go to the tape here, and then I'll speak about this afterwards. I, too, have Ohio State.
You locked your phone. This is great radio right now. This is great.
I've got it.
I'm sure.
Really be a very solid team despite all their losses. Kind of to echo the sentiment that everyone else put out, I think there's 3 programs in college football right now that are built to last and sustain themselves, and it's Alabama, Florida State, and Ohio State, simply because of the way that they're recruiting, like you guys said. I don't see them facing any struggles on their schedule, except when it comes to the fact that they play a back-to-back Wisconsin and Penn State, both night games in consecutive weeks. I don't think they get out of both of those unscathed. I think they will lose one for sure, because playing in Wisconsin is tough at any time, and Penn State has one night game per year, and they're going to be hyped up. They're going to be a better team. I think Franklin saves his job. That's too tough a game. I think they beat Iowa.
All right, so Doobie's a genius and called this.
Wait, that's
not
not.
the only time. You said this about 2 other times throughout the season too about this Penn State game. So I take nothing away from you on that.
I don't want to just praise myself there. Before that, I also said that Michigan State was the second best team in the Big Ten. And after that, I said that Michigan would lose 4 games this year. So by no means am I some sort of sage. I just found a way to predict that Penn State game right and had to play that clip.
So that's great listening. The fact that we had 2 live viewers stay on for that whole bit is incredible in my opinion. I love y'all for listening through that. But yeah, what's interesting about this Ohio State loss to me is that it means absolutely nothing. This Ohio State loss, I was like, oh, number 2 goes down. It changes the whole playoff picture. It changes 0 things.
Nothing.
Because Ohio State is still in the playoff if they win the rest of their games. If they win out, they go to the Big Ten championship. If they win that, they're in because they would have beaten Michigan.
And another thing for Ohio State is for them it matters so little because wherever they put the game, wherever they put them in the playoffs, it doesn't matter geographically. They're going to have to travel equidistant. It's either going to be on the West Coast or the East Coast. So for Ohio State, Urban Meyer's not sitting there upset at himself right now. He knows, and this is what I believed all along, they needed that loss. I said this a couple weeks ago. They need that loss to become a national championship contender. I still think they beat Michigan convincingly, and like you said, that loss means nothing to Ohio State. It does mean a great deal to Penn State because that was a win that program needed. As I said 3 months ago, James Franklin needed that win to save his job. Every Penn State guy that I've talked to, their first words was, this is the first time under James Franklin we showed something like that. So I'm happy for Penn State. I'm happy that they could show themselves to win a big game again.
So we're obviously not going to go much longer. We're over an hour and a half on the total podcast. We wanted to get a good, solid NBA preview in. I'm glad we were able to. This is going to be, I don't know if Doobie has any more topics, but I do want to say I might try to get something together with these guys on like Thursday afternoon or Wednesday night or something to try to do a little quick preview of the college football weekend, especially that Florida State-Clemson game that I can't wait to watch us lose. But is there any other college football you wanted to bring up before we call it a night, Doobie?
Last thing I want to say is I was looking at it today. Penn State is ranked 24th in the nation with 2 losses. Florida State is ranked 12th. I cannot believe when I conceive Florida State being ranked 12th. This is one of the greatest examples of preseason polls putting a team somewhere they don't belong. That Ole Miss win looks like nothing. The loss to North Carolina, although it looks better than last week, is not a good loss. If Florida State does not beat Clemson, and I'm saying does not beat them, doesn't matter what they lose by, if they do not beat Clemson, they should not be ranked in the top 25.
They will be, though.
We will be, absolutely. Florida State will be. But we do not deserve to be. At home, you've got to win this game if you want any semblance of being ranked in the top 25 before the end of the season, before we get to play the Gators. So I was just looking at that today, and I realized that we like to talk about how the media hates us so much, but we're taking a huge bump in polls that we really don't deserve right now.
Yeah. Another interesting thing about Penn State jumping is Pitt getting only 2 total votes as recognition at all to get in the top 25, who beat Penn State and have the same record. But that's what happens when you
right?
Yeah, so that's what happens when you beat the number 2 team. Though you get that big jump, and Penn State still does have that name recognition.
Yeah,
that team like Pitt is not going to get.
But if Pitt does beat Virginia Tech, I think then voters will look at it and go, "Oh man, this team did beat Penn State. They maybe deserve some credit."
Yeah, if they beat VTech, they got to get bumped up into 25. You'd think, but you never know. We're going to call it at that. Sorry if it's been long, everybody. I hope you like NBA as much as we do, as much as y'all usually love college football, because it's about all you got tonight. Next week, I'm sure we'll talk World Series and a lot of college football and how pissed we are at our Seminoles for getting beat at home.
Disagree.
I gotta hope you're right. But yeah, y'all have a good week, and we'll see you next Monday.